Welcome to the Longest Turn Board Gaming Podcast. This is episode 45, Distilled. My name is Tyler.
Hello, this is Kevin.
This is Tyson.
In this episode, we're going to talk about the games that we've been playing lately. Then we're going to jump into our feature review of Distilled from Paverson Games. We're going to talk about the production, things we like and dislike, and then our final thoughts and ratings.
Which I mean, we're going to talk about this later. I just think it's hilarious. None of us actually drink on this podcast, right? But we're reviewing a game about distilling spirits, right?
Yeah.
Which I thought
we have very little knowledge of ourselves.
You know, I learned a lot though by playing this game.
Yeah.
So
it's very thematic, and we're going to get into that.
We'll get into that, in more detail later. But I just thought that was kind of funny.
I was actually thinking about it earlier, and I was like, man, if this game was like about making cheese, global cheeses, I would be all over that theme. And it's not, but that's okay because they pull it off, and it's amazing.
It's an amazing game.
Yep.
So somebody out there, a game designer, make a cheese game. I think that's what we're getting at here, right?
Yeah. Curdle that cheese, process that milk, scrape the fat off, pour it into the little
I feel like
molds.
somehow you're making some sort of song. Curdle that cheese, process that milk. I don't know. I don't want to listen.
Companion app with a song.
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll have Tabletop Audio do some tracks for us, just like they did for Distilled.
Yeah, right. Or Mind Clash style. You have a little app that you click a button when you do something, and it makes cheese noises. I don't know what those are, but
we should do a Longest Turn app like that.
Whoa! Get your squeaks out.
Birds.
Tigers in Zion.
That was one of my favorites.
Yeah.
I don't know what medication accidentally made it into my food that night, but
we're glad it did. And you got a shirt out of it. You made a shirt with Tigers in Zion, right?
I did. Yeah.
All right. We've got to make that widely available to all of our listeners.
All right. How you guys been?
Good. Yeah. It's nice to record again. It's always nice to record.
Yes. It's always a good time.
And I feel like life's been busy for me lately, but somehow I've gotten a lot of board games in too.
I am the same. Yep. I commented today on Discord about that. I've been playing games like crazy, and I'm not just board game arena games. Right. We've played a ton of games in the last week or so, and it's been fantastic.
And it's kind of, for me, it's a continuation from Gen Con. I just came home and I wasn't tired of playing games. I was actually jazzed up to play more games, right? Play the games I picked up and then play more.
Which is interesting because we've had stuff like cabin cons or other little local game days where it's like we've spent hours and hours playing games, and then we're like, I could be done for a little while.
I got to take a week off, right? Yeah, and it wasn't like that for me. There's so many good games out there, you know, and it's been a blast.
I'm still riding the high of a Ankh game last night.
Yeah.
2-player with my son. Came down to one devotion space, and he pulled it out, and it was awesome. It was so much fun, and it was good to get back to the table.
I'm riding the high from Dragon's Breath.
Yeah. Dude,
picked that up over the weekend on your recommendation. I found out... Well, later I found out I had Dragon's Breath The Hatching, which is the second in the series. Fun game, though. It actually is a lot of fun.
It is.
So my 5-year-old and I have been playing that. We probably have 4 or 5 games in, so it's a good one.
Yeah, my 3-year-old, almost 3-year-old, man, when he sees that, it's like Dragon's Breath. one more.
His day immediately gets better.
Yes, I mean, that kid will sit and play 5, 6, 7 games in a row.
That's
awesome. He loves it.
That's
and
great.
you pull the rings off, and the dragon gems fall down, and he does it so delicately. And then sometimes he'll just be like, and
just rip it off, and all the gems are going everywhere.
Yeah, and then you know it's time to put it away.
Yeah. Then
once the rules are not being followed anymore.
Oh, yep.
Right?
You got to teach them young.
Yeah.
It depends on
follow
the game.
the rules. Dang it.
It depends on the game.
No,
there are
Tyson.
some games that I'm okay with them exploring. Ice
we
Cool
had a
being
whole
one of them.
episode about house rules.
For kids, Ice Cool is one of them. I don't really want to play with the cards with my kids when I'm playing Ice Cool, so we'll just play tag, essentially, is how we'll play that game. And they get the experience of the dexterity.
Okay, how old are your kids?
My oldest is 6, so
okay, so that's old enough to play with the cards. But
he could play with the cards. My second is 4, so it's kind of like he's starting to grasp it, but he also
borderline.
Yeah.
All right, I'll allow it.
Yeah, I'm glad for a 4-year-old you allow you allow some leniency.
Yeah. Well, should we jump into the games that we've been playing lately?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. Kevin, you want to go first?
So I talked about this game in the last episode. It was on my top 5 lists from Gen Con. I hadn't played it yet, but I was able to get a play in with my family, and that is HerStory. This is designed by Nick Bentley, Emerson Matsuchi, and Daniel Reynolds. It's published by Underdog Games, and there's 2 artists listed on the Board Game Geek page. It's Eunice Adeyi and Christina Aguirre. So this game, it's a very light family game. If you listen to the last episode, I kind of gave a little bit of a rundown about what it is and how excited I was about it. It's based on historical women in history, right? It's a very light engine building set collection game. And the whole goal of the game is what you're doing is you're an author and you're trying to write a book about these women in history. And there's 8 chapters in that book. So you're going to be drafting these cards that have certain requirements on them in order to write that chapter of the book. So there's certain icons on the right of the card. I think there's maybe 4 or 5 different icons. And once you have those icons, you can then write that chapter. The way that you get those icons is there's tiles that are in the middle of the table, and they have a combination of those icons on the tiles. So you're going to be drafting those, and you're going to be putting them on the side of your board, and you have a certain number of spots that you can put them. And then once you have that required number of icons, based on the card, you can write the chapter of that book. If you do it with the exact number and type of icons, you get a little bit of a bonus. And on some of the cards, and this is where it gets interesting, there's text on the bottom of the cards that is the engine building part of the game. It will say, for future chapters that you write, for example, if the chapter, if the requirements for that chapter have 3 of this icon, you're going to get bonus points. So it will influence what you're going to draft as far as the women that you're going to write about. And you're trying to synergize with that, right? There's some cards that are a little bit of a catch-up mechanic that says, well, if you're in last place and you write a chapter in your book, you get some bonus points. Some of the cards don't have any text for the engine building, but they have more victory points. So it's kind of a trade-off, and you can pick how you want to approach the game and what kind of strategy you want to approach. So when I was playing, my strategy was going for kind of the mixture of in-game points and end-game points. My daughter, she was way behind. And then we got to the end of the game, and she had built this, end game scoring engine where she just jumped way, equal to where my wife was. And then I kind of was a few points ahead of that and ended up winning. But it was cool to see there was multiple paths to victory, and to see the different strategies that everybody played, to score points at the end of the game. So that was cool. At the end of the game, what you do is you take the reference card, you flip it over, you put it on your book, and then you flip your book over. And every card has a little historical tidbit about who you wrote about, and then it has some facts that about that person. And then you go around the table, and we read about one of the people that we made our book about, which was really cool. And it says, okay, read about one of these people, but we liked it so much we kept on going. We read about 2 or 3 of the people in our books, and it was just cool to learn about these amazing women in history. And it was cool for my daughters to hear about that, and it was fun. And I love games that are historical and they teach you something, and I think this one does a really good job. And I was worried that it wouldn't be a good game, but it was an enjoyable game. A very light kind of entry point to engine building and set collection, which I think will appeal to a lot of people and a lot of families. So it's a recommend for me. If that sounds interesting to you, check out HerStory.
That was one of the concerns I had when you were talking about it. Was conceptually it sounds fantastic, and the premise upon which it was developed and created is I'm all on board for that. But I was.
But is it a game?
Worried.
Yeah.
Does it execute in a way that is both educational and enjoyable?
Yep, because that's balance, right?
Yeah.
So some games don't pull that off, but I think this one does a good job. Like, don't go into it expecting a heavy, deep experience, right? Go into it expecting a good family weight game that's a great introduction to engine building, and I think you'll be happy with it.
Was the payoff there for your daughter that you were hoping for, as far as like a representation of women in games, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it was. Yeah, because it was fun. We were looking through all the cards. There's 120 different cards.
Oh, wow.
Right? So you're only building a book with 8 of those women. And then if you have 4 people playing around the table, you're just only going to see a fraction of those cards. But it was cool to flip through the cards and say, oh, my daughter was like, oh, I did a book report on her, and flip it over and read about it. And it was cool. And her eyes would just light up. And then like, who is this person? Oh, she finished building the Brooklyn Bridge when her husband died. And she was the first one to ride across the Brooklyn Bridge in a carriage. Well, that's kind of cool, right? And just learning about these things and seeing them get excited about these historical women was great. So the payoff was great. And I'd just throw in there, it's not just for families with young girls, like any family, like learn about these women and understand that there's a lot of powerful women and women that have made a difference in history. I think it's a valuable game to own, really.
You were just saying that, and like basically that's the quote unquote flavor text that is on cards in a lot of other games. And most of the time in games, I ignore a lot of flavor text. Some of them I think, okay, could be fun, tongue in cheek. Like I like Clank a lot of the times in its tongue in cheekiness, right? But a lot of flavor text I pretty much ignore because I'm like, okay, what can I do with this game? This sounds like a game in which the flavor text, I would be all about reading it in between my turns.
Yeah, so I agree with you for Euro games. Some Euro games are about the mechanics, right? If it's more of a kind of an Ameritrashy type game, I will be more into the flavor text. But if it's a game about mechanics, I completely agree with you. A lot of times I kind of ignored the flavor text. But this one, it was just so much fun to flip those cards over and read.
I think the first game or two, I'll check them out. And then if it's a Euro game like that, like I'll just skip over it in the future. But the first time I'm sleeving it or I'm playing it, I check it out. So I guess I'm the odd one out.
Yeah, but how long does it take you to sleeve? We've had this conversation.
Oh my gosh.
I cannot
Here we
handle
go.
that. If you're going to read it and sleeve it, that's going to take hours.
It's relaxing. I don't know.
Agreed. I agree.
Thinking about how great your podcast co-hosts are. I don't know.
Thinking about how weird they are that they don't sleeve their games.
Yeah. I do think of you every time I sleeve, Tyson.
Oh my gosh.
And then I think of your very expensive Eschaton sleeves.
Yes, exactly.
It all comes back to those.
One last thing on HerStory I forgot. So you open up the game and there's this little envelope that says, this is a gift for you type of thing. You open it up, there's like 5 bookmarks in there and there's stickers and there's these postcards that have cool art. And I opened up those and I handed them around the table and said, hey, pick out some of these, and my girls got excited and have bookmarks with these women on them too.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah.
And I thought that was a nice touch, right, for the game. I thought that was pretty cool. So that is HerStory.
Well, my game has no historical significance and seems vastly underrated in comparison to HerStory. The game I want to talk about, though, is called For Northwood, a solo trick-taking game.
But how does that work?
Yeah. That was going to be the first thing I said. But before I get into that, let me say that this game was designed by Will Sue. He also did the artwork on it, and it is published by Side Room Games. I saw the artwork on this game, and it looks very childlike and something you would see in like a children's book. And it looks really cutesy and sweet, and I did not really think that there was a lot that would draw me into this, but I couldn't deny the fact that in parentheses in the title it says or a solo trick-taking game, and you
have to try it, right?
I love trick-taking.
Yep.
As we've talked about in our last snapshot episode, and I've never seen a solo trick-taker before, so this was like really kind of interesting to me. Anyway, essentially what it is that I'll just read some of what it says. It says, your task is to peacefully unite titular woodland kingdom. You do this by visiting 8 fiefs and engaging their rulers in dialogue, quote, tricks. You have a 52 card deck, your normal suit of deck of cards, except in this, the king, queen, jack figures are all going to be these royalty figures, and they have specialized text on their cards for abilities they can do. What you do at the start of the game is you lay out 8 different little fiefs, cards that have a number from 0 to 7 on them, and then you randomly shuffle your little rulers and lay them out on one of these fiefs. Then you take 4 jacks in, which have abilities on them, which are abilities that you can use throughout the round as you're playing. You can activate an ability on one of these cards to do different things. Then you have the deck of cards that remain. You shuffle those, draw 8 cards, and in your cards you now have your hand that you're going to play for tricks. Like any other trick-taking game, you're going to have to follow suit. If a certain suit is played, you're going to have to play a card if you have it in your hand of that suit. Highest value wins of that in that instance. But essentially what happens is you have this deck of cards, and every round what you're going to do is you're going to flip over 1 card. Whatever the value on it is going to be the royal animal that you're playing against. Essentially, it's their dialogue. They're initiating a dialogue. Each of the royalty members have a specific suit that they are, which is the trump suit, and that's their preferred thing to talk about. So whenever that suit comes up, then they're going to use that as their trump card. Now, the interesting thing is at the start of this round, what you're going to do is you're going to pick one of these fiefs and choose which one to go after. And remember how I said there's 0 through 7 on these fiefs, what they're numbered as? That's the amount of tricks that you have to take to be able to persuade that royal figure to join your cause for Northwood. And you're trying to build an alliance. In order to win the game, every one of these fiefs have a certain number of stars on them from 1 to 4. And those stars are points that you earn. To win the game, you have to get at least 16 stars, which really works out to you have to win almost every one of the royal members in their fiefs, except for maybe 1 or 2, depending on how many stars you get. But so as you're playing 1 card, and then you're playing a card from your hand in response. And it just plays out like a normal trick-taking game, except you have those dialogue options where you can invoke a special power. When you persuade a royal member to your cause, you get to add them in as your ability set. So you can use their abilities potentially in the next round if you choose to add them as one of your 4 advisors. So this game it's fascinating. I have yet to master this. It's got a lot going on. It plays just like a trick-taking game would, and I feel like I haven't done this justice in explaining exactly the nuance of how this game works, but there is this kind of intensity to this game that I didn't expect from it, and I felt like it was really well executed, and it feels just like a trick-taking game. So if you like trick-taking and you want a solo experience for it, I would highly recommend that this is a good option for that.
I love the art. Kind of draws you in. It's rated 8.1. That's surprising.
It's
on BGG.
Highly regarded.
Yeah, that's crazy with 860 ratings.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's worth checking out, it seems like. For sure. And based on what you described, it sounds interesting.
Well, and I haven't won this yet, so it's one that you can come back to. And I, like I told you, there is a campaign book in this that is a fairly thick campaign book. It's as big as the rule book, essentially. And I think that there are a number of different challenges that you can go through. And if I'm looking at it right now, it looks like it has 4 in each season or something like that. So spring, summer, fall, and winter, there's 4 different challenge scenarios in that. So that's 16 different scenarios in the campaign version of it. But like I said, I still haven't even gotten past I haven't won the game once, and
and for a game like this, you don't want it to be easy,
no.
Right? So you want to there needs to be some skill involved to actually beat it, and it sounds like this game needs
absolutely
that, right? So the more you play, probably the better you're going to get at it. So.
Well, and you choose which ruler you're going to go after, essentially, based off of, one, what is in your hand, because if you have none of the trump suit of one of the higher valued suits, then you may want to go and to a different ruler who has maybe fewer tricks that you can win. So you have to decide, am I going to go for tricks that I think I can win all of them, or am I going to go for the one that I can win none of them? And really the 0 and the 7 are the hardest ones to manage. To take no tricks or to take all but one of the tricks is the hardest to manage. And so those are also worth the most points.
How did you come across this game? Did you say that?
So I follow on BGG. There's
Tyler wasn't listening, so
I didn't say specifically. No, I didn't say specifically, so that's fair. But on BGG, there's a geek list that I follow that comes out with up and coming rising in the BGG rankings.
Yeah, I follow that.
And so I follow that, and I was scrolling through, and I saw that one, and I'd seen a couple of other people mention it as a solo game to play, and so because it was running up the ranks in BGG, I was like, I gotta check this out because so many people are talking about this, just like what you said, Kevin.
Yeah. So another thing to note, it's for Northwood.
Yeah.
Right? Exclamation point. Just like resist. Yeah. It seems to be a theme in the solo games, right?
Yeah, because we can't really.
You got to have that little, punctuation at the end to really drive it home.
Psych yourself up for a solo game.
Yeah, that's right.
I take that as an insult in some ways because I love solo games.
Solo games they're not my favorite. I'd rather play obviously with other people, but that's not always available.
No,
right?
No, it's
so
not.
Having good options of solo games is fantastic.
I will say that, like, growing up, I used to play solitaire all the time on the computer or just with a deck of cards, and this kind of gave me that feel of solitaire in the same kind of strategic ways. Sometimes maybe your hand's stacked against you, sometimes it's not, and it works out the way you want it to work. And I had a lot of fun with this in that regard. It reminded me of that in some ways.
It made me want to go play Regicide for some reason, which I think is a fantastic solo experience. But
they do seem like they have like a similar premise to like how they utilize the standard deck of cards, and there's a little bit of variation on that. Yeah.
You guys, there's a legacy Regicide coming out, right?
I heard that. Yeah.
Yeah. That's weird.
Yeah. I'm definitely going to check it out. I don't know if I'll back it, but
for sure. But when I heard that, I'm like, it seems kind of strange, but hopefully it's awesome. Yeah.
I mean, we're in a day and age of sequels and
legacy
and
everything.
Legacy everything.
Yeah, right.
Sweet sequels, legacy reboots, whatever we can get. Yeah.
Yeah. Speaking of sequels, this next game that I've been playing lately is a sequel to Point Salad. This is Point City. Point City is designed by Molly Johnson, Robert Melvin, and Sean Stankiewicz, and the artist is Dylan Mangini. This is from Flat Out Games and AEG. I actually backed the Point City Deep Dive Kickstarter, but that hasn't arrived yet. But we did get a review copy from AEG at Gen Con for Point City. So this is, if you're not familiar with Point Salad, it's a card drafting set collection game that is very lightweight. And Point City dials it up a notch. So in this one, you lay out 16 cards, a 4x4 grid of resources. And optionally, on your turn, you can flip over a resource card that is in a row of all resources or a column of all resources. And when you flip that over, it's got a building on the backside. So you're trying to draft resources and buildings that you can then immediately build the building and add to your tableau. And the buildings will either give you points, they'll give you permanent resources that you can use once per turn, or they'll let you unlock civic tokens, which are kind of the similar to Point Salad, the cards that award you points for certain types of sets and stuff. So on your turn, you draw 2 cards from somewhere in the grid. They have to be orthogonally adjacent to each other. And if you draw buildings, you have to be able to pay the resources and build it right then. If you can't draw anything from the grid, then you'll just draw 2 cards from the deck. I think each player gets 17 turns. You just keep going around and around, drawing resources, building up your permanent resources so that you can get better and better buildings into your tableau and score more and more points. Something that I really like about this is that there are tiered cards. So there's a tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3. You go through the tier 1 cards first, and then tier 2 and tier 3. They progressively get more expensive and more rewarding, which I really like when games do that. I've played this a couple times already. It is a much better experience for me than Point Salad. Point Salad is kind of weak, and this has a little bit more bite to it, a little more strategy. I don't know. I like it.
Yeah, I like it too. I got it played on Sunday, which it was a great play. The one thing I would say, Point Salad plays up to 6. This one plays up to 4.
It does.
So Point Salad, maybe it's a little bit, if you have a larger group, it's going to maybe be the one to go to. And I really enjoy Point Salad for what it is. It's just it's a light game, and it's just a lot of fun to play.
Well, and it's better to play with younger kids too, I would think.
Yep, for sure. But Point City does kick it up a notch. What I found super interesting is when you draft a resource card, when you refill that, you're going to flip it over to a building.
Yeah,
right?
I forgot to mention that. That is a really cool part of the game.
So it's a constantly evolving grid of 16 cards from resource to building, right?
Yep.
Which I thought was really cool. And sometimes, like when we played, a whole section of the map was buildings, right?
Yeah.
And it's like somebody had to break into that to kind of get it to switch over to resources. That was the most interesting part of the game for me. And then just the decision of, am I going to go for cards that give me permanent resources? Am I going to go for cards that give me points for the end of the game? That's a fun decision to make. I thought it was great. It definitely kicks it up from Point Salad, and I think to a little bit of a meatier game, which I think they did a great job of that.
Yeah, and I'll keep both in my collection for sure. I've enjoyed my plays of this though, and the one that is the one negative though is the 4-player count. But
right,
the turns take a little bit longer too, because people are trying to find the optimal buildings to draft, and you're trying to figure out how can I draft 2 buildings later on in the game and build both of them at the same time.
Or you're trying to see on the board, wait a minute, I don't have this resource, but that resource is next to that building, so I can get that card first, and then I'll have the resource I need to build that building.
Yeah.
So you're scanning the grid to see if you can do stuff like that.
And it's cool too, because there's some wild resources that you can draft those over the course of the game as well. There's also double resource cards.
Yeah, and like the level 2 or 3.
Yeah, in the tier 2 and tier 3, you get tons of those, and those are pretty powerful and fun to utilize. So
yeah, it's a good one.
So I'm curious, having never played it and only played Point Salad, which, by the way, I love Point Salad, and I think it's a very efficient design. Like, I think they did a fantastic job on how pretty much seamless everything is and clean and easy to teach it is. So I'm curious about Point City does it feel as well put together, like as strong of a design, and does it feel as easy to kind of teach to people? Maybe there's more complexity, but is it as like approachable in the sense it's like the next step up kind of a thing?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's easy to teach. I think it's a nice progression, and they did a really good job with it, and it feels like a well-designed game, right?
Yeah, and it plays super smooth. The hardest thing is remembering, okay, was there a resource here? And do I flip it to a building, or for some reason,
was it a building or was it a resource?
Was it a building or a resource? And they have little tokens that you can put down that say building resource that will remind you. When I first started playing the game, I'm like, that's stupid. How are you not going to remember? But it happened so many times. So we started putting them down,
so
building and resource. So it was well thought out.
Well, and there's some variability too in the civic tokens. There's 22 total that come with the game. In a 4-player game, I think you use at most 14, and it's less in the lower player count. So there's variability there in which civic tokens that you have and how they'll change the scoring in each from game to game.
Yeah,
I like reading out the buildings that I'm building.
Yeah,
sometimes, or I noticed in my second game that I played, I was going a little more of the hippie route. So it was kind of, I don't know.
That was the city you were building?
Yeah. But then I built a hotel and then I was like, no, forget this, and started being harmful to the environment and things like that. So.
Nice. Way to go.
Yeah.
Way to go.
Yeah.
Yeah. That sounds like a great message after HerStory and
oh, jeez. No, it's a good one though.
It is good.
Worth checking out.
Yeah. So that is Point City from Flat Out Games.
All right, so the next game I'm going to talk about, this is in a series of games. This is Clank Catacombs. So this one's designed by Paul Denon, art done by Clay Brooks, Anika Burrell, Nate Storm, and Dan Taylor. And this is published by Direwolf. So we've talked about, I think, Clank on
in this episode.
Before.
I talked about the flavor text just earlier.
You did. I was listening. Yeah, you did talk about that. Clank is a deck builder. It's a great deck builder, a very, very popular deck builder. There's Clank, the legacy version, right?
Clank in Space.
Clank in Space. This is the most recent version of Clank. Now, I played the original one time, and then I've played this Clank Catacombs, and I think I prefer Clank Catacombs for a number of reasons. So the mechanics are the same as any Clank game. You've got, it's a deck builder. You've got skill that you're going to use to buy other cards. You've got swords that you're going to use to defeat the goblin or to defeat other monsters. You've got boots that is how you navigate around the map, right? So you have boots that will get you to other tiles. The unique part of Clank Catacombs is you're building the map as you go. So if you go to the edge of a tile and you play a boot, you will reveal a tile from a stack of tiles and you'll encounter something, right? You don't know what that's going to be. It can be, well, some of the new things that get added in Clank Catacombs are way shrines, and way shrines are a way to get additional coins. There's tiles that have ghosts. So if you get a ghost tile, you're going to add a white cube to the pool of cubes that get added to the bag. And when a white cube gets pulled, then everybody has to put a cube on the track, right? So it hurts everybody, which is super interesting. Yeah. There's prisoners that you can release, right? Which is cool. Which is kind of cool, right? So it has all the normal Clank things, but it adds some different things that I thought were a lot of fun. What I like more about this version is just the exploration, right? You don't know what you're going to find. You don't know if you're going to find one of the amulets, right? And the way that the amulets work is a little bit different. You have a stack of amulets, and the first tile you flip over that has an amulet on there, you're going to put the top amulet, which is going to be a lesser valued one, right? So the more the map builds out, the more valuable the amulets are going to be. It has the same concept of you got to get up to the top before you die, or else you don't get any points. If you get all the way back to where you started, you get the bonus. Once you end, there's no timer that starts, but you pull, I think, 4 little cubes from the bag every time it's your turn. So it's going to accelerate everybody else dying, right? So same concept there, just a little bit of a different way that it's implemented. It's just a really fun game. I enjoyed my play. I'm excited to explore it a little bit more. And I think the changes that it makes to the standard, at least the vanilla Clank that I played were good changes and something that I like a little bit more. So
nice.
It's a good one.
Paul Denon. Where have I heard that name before?
Other Clanks. I see what you're doing there. Yeah. The lesser of his designs.
Oh,
right?
Geez, get out of here. Ranked 8th overall.
Dune Imperium, right? Hey, well, I rank schmank, whatever.
Oh yeah, that guy. I know him by the Clank games because I've played Clank far more than I've played Dune Imperium, and not to say I don't want to play Dune Imperium, but like you just talking about this, Kevin, excites me about Clank again, and I've got the original copy of Clank on my shelf, and I've got the underwater kind of expansion for it.
Nice.
And I love that every version of Clank takes that core mechanism and then builds on it, and it always works in a way that is exciting and unique and justifies you owning multiple copies of this game.
Right. So, I mean, Paul Denon, he's good at deck builders, right?
Yeah.
Dune Imperium is a great game. Clank, I think, is a little bit more accessible, right? It's a little bit easier to get into, shorter playtime. I think it's a shorter playtime, at least in the games that I played of Dune Imperium. But it's just, it's accessible. It's fun. It's a good deck builder, and we love deck builders around here. So it's great.
Yeah. So I haven't played Clank Legacy yet. It's still on my shelf of shame, but I backed the second Kickstarter for $1, and the pledge manager is ending in a week or so. And I'm on the fence. Like, do I really need to back?
You can get it
Clank
later,
Legacy
right?
2?
Do they have exclusives or anything in there?
I think there are some add-ons or
Okay. So you'd be missing out on a few things.
Yeah, I need to look into that, I guess. But I'm kind of leaning towards just waiting on it. But
I will.
But hearing you talk about it, I'm just Clank in general. I'm just like,
FOMO.
I only have played one game of Clank Legacy, and I loved what it was offering in that, like, and the exploration. You talked about the exploration in Catacombs, Kevin, and I feel like that's also present in Clank Legacy, and I really enjoyed that, and I wish I could play more of that. It's just so hard sometimes to get Legacy games to the table, so I don't know that I would back it for that, but I think that it is completely worthwhile if you can get it.
We got to have a campaign legacy night. We've talked about this before, but I'm working through Undaunted Stalingrad.
I was wondering if
with
you
Mark,
you were going to finish it.
Yeah, we're going to finish it. I haven't. We haven't played for a while because summer, right, and busy schedules. But now that things have are calming down, I think we'll be playing more. But we should have like a dedicated night. I would love to play the Acquisitions Incorporated.
Absolutely,
the Clank. I mean. From what I've heard, it's one of the best legacy games out there, right?
We could easily come up with a list of like 20 plus games that are campaign-based games.
Campaign or legacy, yeah.
That would be worth playing, and that one would be highly...
That'd probably be number one on the list for me. Yeah, for sure. So if that sounds interesting to you, then pick up Clank Catacombs, or really any version of Clank. I think you'll enjoy it.
Well, on the topic of campaign legacy style games like we were just talking about, I have been playing through a campaign game solo on my own, and this may be my favorite campaign game to date that I've experienced. The game I'm talking about is Sleeping Gods. It's designed by Ryan Lockett. Art is also done by Ryan Lockett, and it's published by Red Raven Games. Sleeping Gods, for those who may not know, is a campaign-style game in which you are representing the crew of the steamship the Manticore.
That's the Manticore?
And as they are sailing somewhere in the world, they end up disappearing from our world as we know it and end up in an exotic land where there are gods and different races of creatures and different things going on, monsters, skeletons, etc. But essentially what you're doing in this game is the main board of this game is a spiral bound book, and it represents the map of this world that you're in. You also get this little tear off sheet for each campaign you run that has a map of the world on it, and there is so much that you can go explore in this game, and it represents everywhere that atlas would map. So essentially you have this atlas laid out, and you have a number of different like player boards for your crew. Each player that you play with is going to get a certain amount of player boards depending on how many players you're playing with, and then shared is the captain board. You're going to go through, and basically all you do in this game, it's really pretty simple, is every round you're going to get what's called a ship action, where you can take a little meeple and place it on the board on one of the ship locations, the deck, the sick bay, the mess hall, whatever it might be, and you're going to place it there, and you're going to get certain benefits by going to there. You're going to get resources, you're going to heal characters, you're going to do different things that is going to benefit you as you go through this campaign. Then you get a resource called command tokens. Command tokens are basically what you use to be able to do special actions throughout the game to help you meet skill checks, to heal, to create recipes, to feed your people, to basically, I have a dog in mine and a mule. I can put command tokens on these animals to help me do things. And then after you've done the ship action, you're going to draw an event card. The event card is this deck of 18 cards, and once you complete an event card, there's a global event type of thing that's going to happen and automatically progress your storyline. Once you've completed that event deck 3 times, I don't know. I've only completed it twice at this point, and I'm close to completing it a 3rd time, but I believe that's when the game will end. The campaign will come to its conclusion, whether or not you've done everything you want to. So that event deck is going on, and it's usually bad things happening that you have to mitigate. And then after the event deck card that you draw, you get to go and do exploration types of things. So you can sail your ship to different areas. You can explore islands and locations. You can do a number of other actions that are going to help you basically progress the story. You can go buy things at markets, and you can go to ports, etc. So you're going through this book, and on each map location, there's a circle with a number associated with it, and there's a giant storybook with hundreds of different like numbers in it. You open the storybook when you go there, and you read the text in there. It tells you what's happening in the story, and you get choices. It's choose your own adventure type of a mechanic where you get to go choose different things that happen, and then you have to meet skill checks. It also, you can encounter combat experience, and the combat in this game I thought was really clever in the way it was handled. Essentially what happens is you have a deck that is like 70 cards or more of tarot-sized cards with different types of enemies on it. That's face down. You don't ever get a look through it until the game tells you to, hey, draw this card, which is numbered on the back, and you grab the specific number and add it. You can get multiple different creatures in a combat, and when you do that, you're going to draw 1, 2, 3 cards, shuffle them together, and then lay them side by side. And they have these grid patterns on each of the different monsters. They have initiative value, and the grid patterns have hearts and like damage and status effects types of things that they can do. And I think it's fascinating because as you're going through this game, you can choose to damage the enemy's health, or you can choose to damage the things that they can do. So they can have more powerful attacks, and you can weaken their attacks by attacking the attack spots, or you can go for the health, whichever you think is going to work best. But the other part of it that's interesting is it has splash damage. So if you can align those grids of the cards side by side in a way that works for you, you can hit one enemy and then hit another enemy at the same time, which is a really fun mechanic, I think. But this game has been a fantastic experience so far. There's so much to explore, and one go through this campaign is only going to scratch the surface of what you get to see in this game. I'd imagine it's about 10% of what the game has to offer is when you go through a single campaign of it, and there's so much depth to it that you'll never get bored, I think, if you continue to come back to back with it. And I also really love how easy this game is to basically pause, because it feels like a video game to me, in that you're playing an adventure style video game and you're like, I'm done with finding things for the day. I'm gonna turn it off for now. And you just put it away, and it does a fantastic job. It feels a little bit like some of the Zelda games to me, in that you can go do some quests and some puzzles and stuff, and then puddles, yeah.
Oh, don't be kind. Listen, friend, we didn't mean to land in that puddle, and if we could get our ship out, we would.
Puzzles and stuff, and then I've had a lot of fun with this game.
So you playing this one solo?
Yeah, I've only been playing it solo so far, but...
Is that overwhelming at all? Because aren't you controlling every crew member? Or
You are, and I thought that would be overwhelming, but I think in some ways it's easier than having to coordinate with other people, because those command tokens that I talked about are not shared amongst everybody in a multiplayer game. And you have to have the right characters in front of you to do certain things that you want to. So you may not be able to do certain skill checks or things like that you might want to in a multiplayer game, but having all of the characters in front of me allows me access to everybody's abilities.
Cool. Sounds fun.
So I backed Distant Skies, and that's still in production, but I'm excited for that to show up eventually.
I can't believe that he's done this base version of Sleeping Gods. It's got a couple of expansions and additional content as well, and now there's an additional game coming out.
And that one did over 3 million on GameFound, which is just, it's awesome.
Well, rightfully so, because there's so much to it, and it's done, I think, really well. I'm very impressed by how this game has turned out so far.
Nice.
This was on my Shelf of Shame, and back in our Shelf of Shame episode for this year.
Oh,
and so
nice.
Like I was a little intimidated by it when I tried to read the rules a couple times, but once I got into the swing of things, it was really easy and it made a lot of sense. So I don't know what I was holding off on for so long, but it's paying off, and I really like this game, and I think it's well worth it for solo or multiplayer experience.
Another one to add to our campaign night.
Yeah.
There we go.
That's never going to happen.
I don't know. If we talk about it enough, maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
Maybe.
Top 5 Shelf of Shame games. What else? Where are you guys at? Just curious.
3 of 5.
3 of 5 for me as well.
Yep. Got to get Everdell and Furnace played.
Yeah. I've been 3 of 5 for like 4 months now.
I've had Furnace out like 5 times. I just haven't got it played.
It's an easy one too.
I know. There's no reason why I haven't played it yet. I've read the rules like 2 or 3 times.
What do you have left,
I've
Tyson?
set up Hyperborea, which was one of mine, a couple of times, and then taken it down. And I have Sidereal Confluence, the Bifurcation expansion that I have yet to get played.
And we got a Gugong played the other day.
We did get Gugong played.
You probably already fulfilled
I had
that.
already played it solo once.
Okay.
But like
that was fun.
So I have
Gugong was fun.
Lowlands and the Great Wall left. I've knocked out Nemesis Lockdown, Thunderstone Quest, and Perseverance. All beefy.
Yeah.
And Great Wall is beefy.
You did that to yourself, Tyler.
I did. I didn't put these these...
Hey, there was no rules on your Shelf of Shame
Furnace. The game takes like 20 minutes to play.
Tyler over here is elitist attitude. I only play 2.5 to 3 hour games. I don't want to play no short game.
Yeah, the game
Point
has to
salad
last
sucks.
at least an hour. I never said point salad sucks.
anything of that weight.
I like
I can't
points
believe
anymore.
you even like games like that.
All right, Tyson, what game were you just talking about to close it out?
Sleeping Gods. That was the last game.
Napping Deities?
Napping Deities. Yep.
That was from our The Password
Game.
Is
Yeah.
episode.
Oh, that's
episode
right.
38. That was
right.
the clue, which was awesome.
Yeah. That's pretty good.
Yeah. All right. One last game I'm going to talk about is from another game from AEG. I bought this on their web sale a few months ago. Ready, Set, Bet. This came out in 2022. It is designed by John D. Clare, and the artists are Kirk W. Buckendorf and Athena Kegel. So this is a really lightweight party style game where you are betting on horses. Okay. So there's a big board and there's 10 different horses, and how horses advance is someone rolls 2 dice and then they advance. Okay. So there's a 2 and 3 horse and 11 and 12 horse because they're lower probability. They get 2 numbers. And then there's the 7 horse in the middle. They don't get any bonus rolls. But the other horses, if you roll their number 2 times in a row, then they will move additional spaces. And so while these horses are moving, while someone's rolling the dice, players are simultaneously placing bets on this bet board that there's a first place reward, or the win reward. There's the place where if the horse that you bet on finishes first or second, you win that bet. And then there's show where if you bet there and the horse comes in first, second, or third, then you will win that bet as well. And some of the bets that you place, there's a penalty that you have to pay if the horse doesn't win first, second, or third, or whatever you bet. There's also additional bets that you can do, like, I'm going to bet that one of the orange horses will win. And I think those are 5 and 9, or the red horses, 6 and 8, or one of the 4 blue horses, which are the least probable horses to win. So there's different things going on like that. There's also VIP cards. I haven't played with those yet. And then there's exotic finish bets that are just another location that you can bet. There's also prop bets that change every round. So you play this game over the course of 4 rounds, so four races. And those are things like horse 9 will beat horse 7, or horse 6 will beat horse 5. And so when you place bets, only one person can place a bet on a square. And so there's 3 spots for each horse in the win column, and then 2 in the show column and 2 in the place column. And so we didn't play with actually someone rolling the dice. There's a companion app, and I had that mirrored to the big screen TV, which was turned towards the game table. So at game night the other night, we had 7 people around my table placing bets. The app is awesome. You can change how fast the horses are moving, and it defaults to, I think, 2 or 2.5 seconds, we moved it down to a half second. So the races were actually pretty quick. But it's just fun to place all your bets and try and get them out there as the race is happening, right? And once 3 horses cross this red line, then no more bets can be placed. And so it's completely random, but it's really fun. I would never not play this with the app. It was amazing, mirrored to the big screen. It just was a lot of fun. People get their bets out and then everybody's cheering for which horse they want to win, and there's some upsets, or sometimes 7 will be way behind and then all of a sudden its probability starts coming into effect and it comes all the way back and wins. Or the unlikely 2-3 horse won the other night when we were playing as a family, and Logan and I both made a killing off of it. So just a lot of fun. Really, really good experience. This was perfect for starting off a big game night while people were still coming, and I could see it being played at those game nights in the future. So,
and this is a really high player count, right?
Yeah, you can play with it's 2 to 8 or 2 to 9. So one person, if you don't play with the companion app, there's one person that's just sitting there rolling dice, calling out numbers, and trying to be entertaining with their calls. And that's another reason the app was just really good, because it's cracking jokes at horses that are just barely getting out of the starting gate when the race is almost over. And I don't know, it just did such a good job. I would never want to play it where one of us had to sit there just rolling dice and calling out numbers, and it just wouldn't be that much fun for that person, I don't think.
If you play with the app, can you play full 9 players doing the bets?
So you have enough bet tokens for 8 players. You could use the house bets tokens for the house player, the person who's rolling dice. If you want, they can place their bets before the race starts. So you could technically use those tokens. Honestly, I don't see why you couldn't just create your own tokens and add a couple more. And yeah, there's limited spots on the board, but if you're playing with all the sets of cards, the finish cards, the exotic finish cards, and the other cards, there's still plenty of places to bet. So I don't see why you couldn't bump it up to 10 or 11 or 12 people if you needed to, but it's really fun.
And there's no transparent cards in this game, right?
No.
This is a John DeClaire game.
Oh, no.
Mystic
there's no card crafting.
Card crafting.
Edge of Darkness, custom
No.
heroes.
No, just some dice rolling, a little space in it, right?
Yeah.
But with the companion app, no need for that. I honestly, the little board where you track the horses, like the horse tokens are nice, but I haven't even pulled them out yet. When you play with the companion app, you leave 70% of the components in the box. So
nice.
I don't know.
Looks fun.
It's been a blast. The family enjoyed it. It was a hit at game night, so definitely be playing this one in the future.
Makes me want to get Long Shot out. I haven't played that one forever. There's some good horse racing.
There are.
Yeah. I've played some good horse racing games too, and yeah, I think there's a lot out there, and it makes me understand to some extent why people like to go bet on real horses.
Right?
Yeah. We talked about going and watching the horse races. Shelly did it as a kid when she was on like her brother's baseball tournament trips or something, and she said it was a blast. So we might end up going someday. But same thing. I finished playing. I was like, man, I kind of want to play a Long Shot the dice game. But we ended up playing other games that night and had a good time. So
you could have a themed game night with just horse racing games.
We could. Yeah, we could.
Not heavy enough for Tyler. I get it. There's got to be something else that's a little meatier, or else it won't hold his attention.
You're the one that doesn't like party games.
Oh, I never said I didn't like party games. I don't like party games where I'm running around the table, patting my head and sticking my tongue out, like stupid stuff like that. Other party games
having to do something on the spot or creative, or
like I'm molding something out of clay. It's like, well, party games like this, ready, set, bet.
Okay.
Great.
Okay.
Like Wits and Wagers, that was the first party game that I played that I'm like, this is awesome.
Yeah.
I love it. Right.
Cool.
So yeah, this sounds great.
Sounds like we need to break out Astra again and put the promo cards in there, because you really loved running around the table as a dinosaur.
Was that the dinosaur one?
That was the Perseverance one.
I remember
right.
The Cerebria one was the hug someone.
Yeah,
and it was
boundaries.
Well, yeah, it was funny because when I was teaching that game, or when I was demoing that game at at Gen Con, that card came up and it was all strangers at the table.
Oh my gosh.
And it was just funny. I was like, you give them an air hug. Like, it's okay.
Speaking of Mind Clash, Voidfall is almost here.
Oh, I am so excited. Although I'm a little bit nervous as well because the playtime on that, it can be up like 240 minutes, right?
Yeah.
And the
I
first
got a
time
promo tile.
Oh, nice.
I backed the David Turczi baby GameFound promos thing that gave me a bunch of promos for all his games, or a lot of his games. So
Very nice.
sorry, I wasn't trying to cut you off.
Oh, no, that's fine.
I know it comes naturally to me, but
Well, it does. It does. I had flashbacks of On Mars when I was looking at the playtime because the first time you play this game, it's going to be maybe a 5-hour like thing, right?
yeah,
So
you got to commit to it.
you got to commit to it. So I'm excited to play it, but I'm also
I'm excited
nervous
for you to
about it.
teach it to us.
We'll see. We'll see.
And
Because my copy is not going to show up first. Mine will show up
yours
like
is
3 months after.
Yeah, that's true.
Like my Ready Set Bet that took 5 months to show up.
Did you back it too?
I did back it, but then I backed out of backing it. And then when
triple backed
this
it.
Ascendancy game that I talked about in our bonus episode, that was on Kickstarter. I was looking at it and I was like, I want a 4X game. So I went and I looked at Voidfall again, and I almost pulled the trigger on Voidfall a second time to try and get another copy of it, because I think I could play that one solo.
Yeah.
And as a 4X game, I think it could be phenomenal. And
It looks amazing. It looks really good.
I'm a little bit upset that I talked myself out of it originally. So.
All right. So whoever copy gets her first has to teach. That's just how it.
I didn't get
All
a
right.
copy. So.
All right.
So did you end up backing Ascendancy?
So
You've been a little wishy-washy.
I backed it, and then I backed off on my pledge
You have
to
trouble
the
committing?
core one.
I'm not emotionally ready for a commitment of this magnitude.
And
Then I backed it again, and I backed out, and I backed
canceled
it again.
And then I was reading today that somebody was talking about how this could be Gloomhaven-esque in the sense of like, once it comes, it's so ambitious that if it hits, everybody's going to want a copy, and I could almost back it, and like, even if I don't think I'm going to get it played, I could sell the copy.
Yeah.
Like I don't know. Like I've gone back and forth a ton of times. My biggest issue with it remains that I don't know that we collectively will get it played because of the playtime. I think its best experience from what I've played of it is going to be in the higher decade longer playtime kind of experience.
Like
And
campaign type of thing?
Yeah.
Campaign game night.
yeah, exactly. Campaign game night.
I'll be there.
But I don't think
All
we're
right.
going to get that.
Every Friday.
So
Let's do
I
it.
haven't committed. I think it's a game worth playing, and I would like to experience it still, but I don't know that I can justify
Do
the
it.
cost.
I
Back
think
it
you
again,
should do
and then
the
back out,
$3
and then back it again.
Yeah, and then do the $3 loyalist pledge so that you can get access to the pledge manager.
I've been going back and forth about whether or not, but the problem with that irritates me is they're going to hike up the price in the pledge manager, and
yeah, that's a thing now, which is
I
kind of
don't
annoying.
Love that.
Just do it now.
Yeah, and then watch it not get played.
Well, no, we'll play it.
That sounded real convincing.
Well, I'm a realist. I
Our
know.
shelves of shame are almost exhausted,
Mine is because I'm more discerning than either of you.
or wishy-washy.
Yeah, that could be it too.
Yeah, it sounds good though. Like we said before, it could be the best game ever designed,
Yeah.
or it could have so many things in it that it
Exactly.
just
I mean,
falls
you could-
falls all over itself.
You could say that about every game, right?
Yeah, I hope it's the best game ever. Right?
Yeah, that's my hope too. I hope the most success for it.
Yep.
Cool. I think that wraps up what games we've been playing lately, or at least that we're talking about in this episode, because we've been playing a ton of games lately.
Yeah.
That's right. It's been awesome.
Should we just do played lately?
Well,
Yeah,
we got
and
some of
skip
what we've
the-
been playing lately is Distilled.
It's just-
so
we got to
talk
talk about
Distilled.
We got to talk about Distilled.
All right. So we'll jump into Distilled from Paverson Games. I will say this was a review copy that we received at Origins, just to throw that out there so that is understood. We'll jump into the rules overview from Kevin.
Distilled is designed by Dave Beck, with art done by Eric Evanson and published by Paverson Games. You have inherited an abandoned distillery from a distant relative and are now tasked with bringing your family's business back to its former glory. Over the course of 7 rounds, you will acquire ingredients, items, recipes, and upgrades to create the world's most renowned spirits. Whoever has the most spirit points at the end of the game earns the title of Master Distiller. Each player starts with a distillery board, a recipe clipboard, a metal barrel, a glass bottle, 3 distillery goals, and 2 randomly dealt distiller identities. Each player will choose one identity and discard the other. The distiller identity chosen will tell each player what their starting resources are and what their signature recipe and ingredient will be for the game. Each round of Distilled is broken up into 4 phases. The first phase is the market phase. In this phase, you will take turns, starting with the first player and moving clockwise around the table to purchase any of the following: recipe cubes, basic ingredients or items cards, premium ingredient or item cards, or distillery upgrade cards. When it's your turn, you may purchase 1 cube or card, or you may pass. Play will continue in this way until everyone has passed. You can make multiple purchases in this phase, but only one at a time. It's important to note that only 2 cards from the basic market may be purchased per round. Once you have passed, you may not make any further purchases this round. After all players have passed, discard the rightmost face-up card from each premium market row, placing them face-up on the truck. Shift all cards to the right and lay out the top card of each deck to fill the leftmost space so there are always 4 cards available in each row. The second phase is the distill phase. In this phase, you will place ingredients you want to use into your washback to distill a single spirit. All players can do this at the same time. Place any ingredients that you don't want to use into your pantry for a later round and move any ingredients stored in your pantry that you want to use to the appropriate slot in your washback. To distill a spirit, you must place at least 1 card in the yeast, sugar, and water slots of your washback. There is no limit to how many cards you can place in each slot, but each slot can only contain that type of card. Alcohol cards, removed from earlier distillations, can be placed in either the yeast or the water slot of your washback instead of or alongside those ingredients. Once you've added your ingredients to your washback, you will do the following. Add 1 alcohol card to your washback for each card in the central sugar slot of your washback. Shuffle all cards in your washback together to form a face-down spirit stack. Remove and reveal the top and bottom cards of the spirit stack, returning them to your pantry for use in a future round. Reveal the remaining cards in the spirit stack. This is the result of your distillation. If these cards with the appropriate barrel match the requirements of one of the recipes you have successfully distilled that spirit. You then move to the sell phase. In this phase, you can sell the spirit that you just distilled, as well as any spirits aging in your warehouse to gain money and spirit points. You could also gain a spirit label. Any labels gained will be placed in an empty spot on the spirit label bonus section of your board. You will immediately get that bonus. Any premium bottles used will be placed next to your board, proudly displayed for endgame bonus points. The final phase is the age phase. In this phase, you can age certain spirits to increase their flavor. A barrel and a flavor card is added to a newly aged spirit. Any spirits in your warehouse distilled in a previous round will also have a flavor card added. The more flavor cards you add to a spirit, the more spirit points you will get for that spirit when you sell. At the end of the round, a check is done for fulfilled spirit awards. Spirit awards are specific goals that players can work toward for spirit points. Players can also offer tastings, spending spirit points for coins if they would like. You then move to the next round or end game scoring. At the end of the game, players earn points for spirits left in their warehouse, their bottle collection, distillery upgrades, personal distillery goals, and any money they have remaining. The person with the most points is the winner and master distiller. That's a quick rundown of how to play. Let's get back to the table to see what we thought of Distilled.
Thanks, Kevin, for the rules breakdown of Distilled, the game we're going through today. Tyler, at the start of this, you talked about how this was a review copy, right? And I think that's an appropriate disclaimer to give, that this is a game that we have not purchased ourselves, that we were given. But I got to say, we would have never played this game if they had not given us a copy of this game.
This is probably true.
Which is probably a shame.
Because the theme is something that's important for me in games, usually. And if it's a theme that I'm not interested in, probably not going to buy that game, right? So, distilling spirits is not something I'm super interested in.
Yeah, well, and even if the theme doesn't really jump out to me, there's a lot of Euro games out there that the theme doesn't matter to me. Like, I want it for the experience a lot of times. But even if the theme doesn't jump out to me. This theme didn't jump out to me, and in some ways I was like, I have no interest in the theme at all. So it's not just that I was ambivalent, it's just that I like this theme doesn't appeal to me in any way, so like I didn't care about it. But once we got playing this game and starting to experience it,
and I started drinking right away.
Yeah. And now I no, but like I have a better understanding of distilling and the process, and I have a better understanding of this game and the mechanisms in it in a way that I wish, like, if I hadn't found it, I would have been a little bit sad knowing that this is out here and I hadn't gotten to experience it.
And I think regardless of if you drink or not, the process of distilling alcohol is interesting.
Absolutely.
Right? I've always been interested in it, even though I don't drink. It's like, it's kind of cool. And it's so pervasive in society, right? In every culture, there's different types of alcohols, right? And this game kind of explores that, which is pretty cool, I think.
Absolutely. And we've talked about different areas of the world that we've all been in. And like for me, there's a Filipino beverage in this game, and I lived in the Philippines for a while, and I immediately, when I had the opportunity to play in as the Filipino ruler and the distiller from the Philippines, like I was like, I'm in. I'm going for the Philippines. Like that was fantastic.
I lived in Korea for a year, and I love that the soju token uses the Korean lettering on it, and I just think that's so cool. That's across the board, like the detail, the care that was put into the production and the components in this game. It just, I don't know, it brings out the theme so well.
Even like the clipboard.
The clipboard is amazing. That's one of my favorite components in any game.
You slide in the recipe cards, and there's all kinds of different recipe cards that you can play with. You know, there's a lot of thought put into the game.
Yeah, you can tell a lot of care was put into this and bringing the theme out. Even the rule book. I mean, yes. and how there's backstory. I mean, there's descriptions of each of the drinks from each of the regions. The tasting flights, how they're grouped together. You know, you pick there's a number of different tasting flights to play each game with, and you pick one, and then it has the characters that you can play with those to play a balanced game. I mean, this is a well thought out, beautifully designed game that just brings out the theme so well. And again, the theme does really nothing for me personally.
Yeah. Well, and we've already started touching on this a little bit, but let's talk about the production overall of this game and some of the things that stand out to us about the production of this game. You've already mentioned the clipboard and a couple of other things, but I think for me, one of the things that really stands out about this game is that all of the component quality is really high value. Like the cardboard is thick cardboard. It's important for me because those pieces, like the labels that you're picking, they're all unique and beautifully designed
and chunky,
and they're chunky. Yeah. And it adds an experience to this game that
gives it a premium feel.
It absolutely does. And I think there is a more deluxe version of this game that has like a metal coin and a couple of other
some
things
add-ons,
that you can get to it. And even without that, all the components are great. The game trays in this game are really well organized. That makes setup and teardown of this game really simple and easy, I think.
The trays are some of the best I've ever seen. It's so easy to get the game out and to put it away, and everything has a clear design space. I sleeved all the cards. They fit? They fit everything perfectly.
Fits. It's beautiful.
From the box layout to the rule book to every component, just beautifully designed.
And I think the art is done really well as well. I mean, I look at the box cover. It draws me into the game. I like it a lot. I think one of you guys weren't as big on the art, right?
I think I initially might have felt that way a little bit, just more of the character art. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But as I've played it more, I've just grown to love it. And the rest of the art and just how it brings all the theme out is just awesome.
Yeah, I think that's well done.
I love the player board. I love...
Some have dogs on them.
Some have as a cat. I don't know why anybody would want cat hair in their alcohol, but...
we'll get to the different flavors in your alcohol.
I love the truck.
The truck's cool.
The discard. So that is for the market cards that get discarded. They get loaded up onto this truck, and it's just
and they do
some
so
cool,
fun thematic things with the cards, right? Like one of the games I played, I had the trucker as one of my specialists, right?
Yeah,
and she could go into the truck and pick out cards that had been discarded in previous turns. You know, it's the thematic ties are great, and
the celebrity promoter, and I don't know.
It's cool.
So the last thing I'll talk about though with the production is along those lines is that on those cards that you're talking about, the art's great and some of the tie-ins that they do are great, but I love that some of those ingredients have flavor text, and we talked about flavor text already in this episode, but I didn't mention it at the time because I wanted to talk about it here, is that the flavor text has some really interesting little facts and tidbits about it that helped me actually learn about the distilling process in a way that I didn't know already. And one of my favorites is that yeast in this, it was a little tongue-in-cheek, talks about how it was the first domesticated animal is yeast. So I thought that was funny and accurate. Nice. So there's some interesting stuff on these cards.
I like the flavor text on the flavor cards.
Yeah.
I see what you did there.
Hey, right.
Speaking of flavor cards.
Yeah.
Okay.
Bacon.
The bacon flavored alcohol.
So are we moving now into the things that we like about this game? Not just the production, but the general, what our likes about the game is?
Yeah. Well, is there anything you guys don't like about the production?
That's a good question. I don't know that there's anything that comes off the top of my head.
Yeah, a lot of times you play a game and you're like, okay, this is a good idea, but it just doesn't work functionally. There was nothing like that in this game.
Yeah.
You know, I don't think there's really anything that I had a complaint with that I can think of.
Yeah, I can't think of anything.
There's
negative.
nothing. Yeah.
It would be an extreme nitpick if there was
absolutely.
Something.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All right, so let's talk about what we like. Tyson, what do you like about this game?
So I think that this game, one of my most favorite things about this game, and it also may come in a little bit later in one of my potential things I don't like about it, is when you have to distill. The distill phase of this game is fantastic. Essentially what you're doing, right? You're grabbing all these ingredients, you're grabbing all this stuff
your
and putting it
yeast and
together.
your water and your alcohol.
You have to have a yeast, you have to have
sugars.
water, and then you have to have some sort of sugars. I love trying to go and grab your ingredients. I love the constraint that you can only buy 2 ingredients from the market board,
the
basic market board up top.
Yep.
And then you're taking all of that stuff and hopefully you get what you want, and then mixing it in during the distill phase in the washback and trying to distill the beverage that you're wanting to do. I love that there's ways that you can guarantee to get what you want,
or you can press your luck.
And there's a little bit of press your luck, and I think that's really exciting about this game and makes it unique in a way that I hadn't really experienced necessarily in this style of game.
That was one of my points that I love. But even more than that, if you're pushing your luck, you still have lesser spirits to fall back on, which I love as well. So even if it
kind of sucks, but you still get something.
Right.
Yeah.
And maybe that's even as bad as just doing the moonshine or
the
vodka.
Yep.
But there are other upgraded recipes that you can still fall back to if you have them. And I think that's awesome because it gives you a way to mitigate the randomness of pulling off the top and pulling off the bottom and adding those back to your ingredients, and then being stuck with not enough ingredients for the main one that you wanted to do, but you can fall back to a lesser recipe still. So I love that.
It's never a true bust, really.
Right.
You can bust in the game, but there's always something that you'll get out of it.
And it won't set you back enough that you're out of the game. Right. You can come back from it, you know.
Well, and it's interesting that you mentioned that, Kevin, because every game that I've played of this so far, while I was invested and wanted to win the game, I enjoyed what I was doing independent of what my score was at any given moment in the game.
And that's one thing I was going to mention is it's just fun.
It is
to distill a spirit, right? That whole process is just fun and entertaining.
Well, and it's fun to see what everybody else is creating too.
Yeah. Yeah. One thing that I like is the distillery upgrades. I think those are so cool and those are so fun. And you can get some good synergies with those cards that I think is really cool. So, and also synergies with your distiller identity card that you start with. So last game I played, my special ability allowed me to buy an ingredient for 2 less, right? And then I got a distillery upgrade that allowed me to buy an ingredient for 2 less. And I was spamming that thing the whole game. And that was just so fun to get these expensive ingredients, put them into get these expensive fruits that give me victory points, put those into a spirit. And then that's how I got a lot of my victory points through the game. So I was able to identify that early, and it was just a fun thing to do in that game.
Well, and we've talked about that type of a thing in other games before, where you can create your own little engine or something that is uniquely yours. And it seems OP in some ways, and you spam it and it like works really well. And you look over at somebody who's doing something like that and you think, that's awesome. I would love to do that, but then you also have something unique that's doing something similar in a way that's
in a different way,
breaking the game in a different way.
That's equally as awesome. Yeah. Because I think, Tyler, in that game, you were getting all kinds of different flavors for
I had
your stuff,
an upgrade, and I kept getting barrels that let me add extra flavor. And
which
that was awesome.
Yeah,
and then these, completely hilarious flavor combinations that sound terrible, but were awesome too.
Yeah. Well, that's another thing that I like, and I don't know if you're going to touch on the flavors or not, but when you age your spirits, you put flavors in them, and then you reveal those once you sell, and that whole reveal is fun.
It's fun.
It's really fun. It can be hilarious because you have skunk in your in your spirit,
or rubber tire,
or you have bacon, or you have like good stuff,
vanilla,
vanilla stuff that gives you points. But seeing what you've created, because you have to keep those face down. You don't know what they are until you sell, and that reveal is a lot of fun.
Yeah, it is. I love the different bottles that you can buy.
Yeah,
they're so cool, and I don't know.
And sometimes they're not cool, and that can be fun too. I remember the first game that we played, and Kevin was getting all of the like janky like
plastic bottles,
milk jar, the most like garbage things that you could put your beverage in, and yet it was kind of, that was his thing because he was selling a lot of moonshine and vodka, and it was working out. So
no wonder I didn't win. Those bottles are great. The pig bottle or whatever,
I like, there's only 7 rounds. I like the decisions of, is it worth it for me to delay my indulgence now? And I'm going to create a spirit that has to age for a while. So I'm not going to get points. I'm not going to get coins. The next round might hurt me before I can distill something else and sell it off. So I like that decision. Do I delay? Some of those aging off recipes are very worthwhile, right? And the payoff is huge. And so there's some interesting decisions there throughout the game. And then if you are aging off some spirits and you've got 2 of them, and then in a round you sell one that you just distilled, you're selling 3 drinks or 3 spirits, and that is just
feels
amazing,
powerful.
And if you can do that before the last round, and then that 7th round, I mean, you can buy whatever you want that's available as far as ingredients and items, and just try to make the most amazing spirit in that last round ever.
That I was thinking along the same lines.
The payoff is huge.
Yeah, because exactly, the payoff is huge, and that is part of the reason why earlier I mentioned that I didn't really care about what my point was at any particular given time, because there are opportunities where you can make huge point swings, and like there was one point, Tyler, in one of our last games that you played, and you were like 4 points for like the first 3 or 4 rounds.
Yeah.
Like you were spending it because, like you were just saying, you had to sacrifice some of your points so that you could have some income so you could continue to do stuff, but you were aging things the whole time. And so you did at one point sell off like 3 spirits, and you just shot right up to the top, and it was like awesome to watch that happen. And I like that this game can do that.
But what's cool about that is I didn't have that strategy at all in that game. Tyler was aging like crazy. I was selling like crazy during the game, and we ended up within 1 point of each other at the end. So it seems like there's multiple paths to victory, which are equally as viable.
Yep.
And it's just trying to eke out those, a few points here and there to be more efficient to get the win type of thing,
Every single game that I've played of this, I've been excited and into it, and it's been fun. And I maybe have won once. I don't know. And I've loved every single game. It's been a blast every single play. And I'm kind of surprised by that, just because going back to the whole theme, it's not a theme that hits with me, and yet the game is amazing.
It's just a testament to the design, right? And how it brings the theme into it, and how it's just a fun game to play.
Well, and the passion you can see in this design. You can see that this was somebody who was passionate about the theme and therefore put that passion into the game, and it
permeates through every last component.
It absolutely does. There's one other thing that I really want to mention before we move on. There is a tension in this in the multiplayer version of this game that is really exciting to me, because the way the market's laid out is there's a lot of different cards there that somebody can buy, but also the way that the labels are put out in the game, there's a limited supply for the amount of players that you're playing with. So there is the possibility that your label can run out, or the supply that you need, the ingredient or the item that you need is taken, and you have to find a way to make do with that and pivot, which is part of the reason why that whole distill phase I think works really well, is that you can start to build your ingredients for certain things, and then you may have to swing a different direction and create a different drink than you had planned on. And I think that that's really interesting. I had read a couple of forum posts and things from other people who had played this, and there were some people who were complaining about there not being a lot of player interaction, which I just couldn't understand, because to me, there's a lot of...
There is, and it can be frustrating.
It can.
Especially the one game where you were both going for the same ingredients for 2 or 3 rounds. I mean, it was... Every time we flipped over another ingredient, it was exciting to see.
Fruit sugar for me.
Well, it was exciting and frustrating. That's going to be one of the things that can be seen as a negative, which I'll touch on in a minute. But yeah.
But so,
and turn order is very important in that.
And I do agree with that. And I will probably be echoing some of the things that you say later about it. But really what I wanted to touch on is that tension, I think, is exciting for the most part, and I really enjoy it, because I ended up playing this game solo a couple of times, and the solo experience loses out on that tension in a lot of ways, I think.
I think there's different tension there, though.
There is some different tension, because so essentially the way the solo game works is there are a number of solo cards, and I have to say that this is the most simple and effective solo design I think I've seen, in that there is no overhead or upkeep in really what you're doing. It reminds me, for those who have played it, of Sprawlopolis style of scoring, in that you have cards that have point values on them, and you have to achieve a certain value and accomplish the goal that is set on that card.
And they're laid out similarly to one of the patterns in Seven Wonders Duel, where you can see every other row, you complete one of them, and you advance to the next row, but you only have the cards available to you that you completed.
Connect to.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's what it made me think of with Seven Wonders Duel.
That is, I hadn't thought about that, but that's exactly right. Like, that reminds me perfectly of that as well. And I love that, because there is that pivot point, and that's where I think some of that tension can be, is that maybe you don't get a goal that you can complete or work with. and so there's like, oh, how do I make this work? Because if I don't go all the way to the top of this kind of card structure, then
it doesn't matter how many points you score, you don't
lose.
Win. Yeah.
And so that can be like a bit of tension.
It's a different tension. Obviously, playing this game multiplayer is going to be better, but playing it solo, it creates tension there. In fact, so I played it last night a couple times, and one of the games, there was no way possible for me to complete the very last, either card on the very last row. But there is a card that lets you flip over, and now you have to score 5 additional points to win, but it lets you replace 2 cards. And so I did that, and I got cards that I could complete, but then I ended up losing by like 4 points.
Oh.
So the tension of trying to get up that pattern of cards from row to row, it made the solo experience very enjoyable for me.
I think it's a fantastically designed solo experience. I won both solo games that I played of it, and the second one I had more tension than the first one in that I wasn't sure if I was going to pull it off, and I made it work in the last round where I could score 2 of my goals and make it all the way to the top of the structure, and I ended up winning. But there absolutely is tension, but you're exactly right. It's a different kind of tension than the multiplayer experience.
But even like the market refresh in the solo,
clever.
It's very well done. So some of those cards, the B cards, have a pattern on them that matches the grid layout of the market cards. And you flip one over and it tells you all the ones to replace as if someone else was playing and buying them. And it takes like 10 seconds.
That's the only maintenance from the solo play.
But it's so quick. And it replicates those other players buying those items and ingredients, and it's really well done.
Yeah, I haven't played the solo yet, but it sounds like the type of solo game that I would enjoy. It doesn't sound like just going for a high score type of thing, right? It's either you win or you lose, right?
Yeah. And there is a high scoring to it, but
based on which cards you complete, that there are certain cards that you complete that have point values on them, and if that's the route you take through those cards, that's how many points you have to score to win. And you have to beat that score. That's the AI or the game score.
Right. And if it is too easy for you in any shape, you can always add more of those red number point goal cards in that structure and increase the difficulty of the game, essentially. So like it is beat your own score to some extent, but not really, because it's beat the AI's score, really.
But and one more thing, and I'll just say this about the solo game. I finished my first game at 11:35 last night, and I was like, I could knock out another one, and I finished it at 12:05.
Yeah,
you can fly through this game.
Quick game.
It's good. Awesome.
Yeah,
really well done solo.
Agreed. And for me, I think I definitely preferred the multiplayer experience to it. Yep. But this is if you were only to be able to play this solo, you wouldn't be missing out enough to not like enjoy the experience that it has.
So is there anything we don't like?
One that is a negative for me is there were a couple times, particularly in my solo game, in which that push your luck can really backfire on you in a way that can set you back. And I don't think that the push your luck itself is bad, but I think that you can get the randomness in it can at the right time send you back a lot further than it should probably do in certain situations. So for example, what I'm talking about is the last game that we played. In the second round, I had set up to create a beverage that was going to give me a lot of points and also give me some income to be able to do a lot. And I had set it up that I could mitigate my loss by having a distillery effect that allowed me to only draw 1 card instead of drawing 2 cards.
That was an awesome effect.
It was fantastic.
Yeah.
And I had put extra stuff in my thing so that I could
put the wrong sugar in or what?
No, I ended up pulling out the 1 card that like I didn't have enough of, and I ended up not being able to score it and having to score a vodka, I think, which lost me out on a lot of points, and it lost me out on a lot of income. And that in and of itself wasn't going to be a bad thing, but because I was the only one that happened to, I felt like it set me back for the rest of the game in a way that I couldn't recover from. Because at the end of that game, I think the point disparity was something like you guys were 40 or more points ahead of me.
Yeah, we were up a little bit.
Yeah,
there.
And that was the one where we were within 1 point, I think.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
And to be fair, I also made another mistake that lost me out on 15 points in that game, which was my own fault. But still, I think I was. it set me back probably 20 or 30 points in the second round.
It is gut-wrenching when you make a mistake and you don't realize it until you
start distilling.
And then it's too late. And, this isn't golf. You don't get mulligans, right? I mean...
Right.
But that's not unique to this game, right?
No, it's
right.
not.
No, it's
that's
not.
your own...
But it can be gut-wrenching.
It can be.
It has
Absolutely.
happened to me, too. I think it happened in the first game where I just did something really stupid.
You didn't have a barrel.
I don't have yeast.
Yeah,
you didn't have a barrel, yeah.
Yeah, and I was like, oh, are you kidding me? I totally just slipped my mind, and I had the money. I could have bought it.
Exactly. And that's the real kicker, is that each time that's happened to me, I could have done the thing. I just didn't do the thing, and that's the problem, which is it's fine, and because it does have that fallback of you're never going to get a full bust. You always can get something out of it. Mm-hmm. But it does. But that's not the issue to me. It's that I feel like if that happens to you too early in the game,
it kind of set you back.
It can set you back. That's my concern.
Yeah.
And I haven't played. I haven't had that experience enough times in this game to be sure whether or not that's really. If maybe that's just me, I need to figure out how I can recover from that better or not.
How you can switch, maybe pivot.
Right.
There isn't a lot of room for error.
No, I don't think there really is either.
No. Yeah, and that kind of leads me to mine. I referenced this a little bit earlier. I mean, this last game that we played, I had tailored my strategy around getting these, fruit cards, right? And I needed fruit cards, and I couldn't get fruit cards in the last round, right? And what made it even worse was Tyson was getting fruit cards as well, and he was before me in turn order. Right before me in turn order. So every time a fruit card came up, he would take the dang fruit card, and it was frustrating. It ended up being
you have
fine.
Marge the trucker, and couldn't you pull fruit off the truck?
I did, but I was still short one fruit because Marge couldn't get two fruit. So
Dang it, Marge.
Yeah, that was a little bit frustrating.
Well, and then
it was something that was completely out of my control, right?
Well, and you could buy from the basic market to get fruits,
but you can only get two cards.
Only two of them.
And
so if I needed
don't score
yeast,
points.
and they don't score points. There's, you need yeast, you need water. So if you don't have those in your pantry, you're gonna have to buy those either from the premium,
if they're there,
or if they're not there, then you're forced to buy them. One of the
But I do like
ones,
that
right?
you have the potential when you buy a water that you can pick any deck and flip over the top card and decide to buy it or not. And there are also other upgrades that allow you to do similar things, and you can try and mitigate that if those cards are available.
Yes. Yeah. If they're available, there is some ways to mitigate it. And what I ended up doing, cause I had a ton of money in that game.
Yeah.
So I was just buying cards to cycle the deck, right? I didn't even need these cards. It's like, well, I got a grain.
Awesome.
Yeah. I got a grain now. I'm not going to do
keep
anything
it in
with
your
that.
inventory.
I'm not going to
I
distill
love
anything
the
with
super
it.
yeast.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
one of my favorite cards.
So that was one thing that was a little bit frustrating is, even though there are some slight ways to mitigate, if you don't get the cards, it's random how those cards come out. And if they don't come out, then you're not going to be able to distill that spirit. You're going to have to pivot into something else. But if you've tailored your strategy around certain spirits, then that's a little bit harder to do.
Yeah.
So that can be a little bit of a negative.
And I think that's the core here for both the complaint that I just mentioned and the one you just mentioned, Kevin, is that it's random. There's things outside your control, and I don't think that being random is necessarily a bad thing. But if you're the type of person who does not like randomness in your game,
then you need to go play chess.
Yeah.
Like, come on. I mean, there's randomness in almost every game that we play.
Sure, but there
is to very extent. There's randomness that can be mitigated.
And output randomness,
and it's more enjoyable when there are ways to mitigate it, which there are in this game, to a certain extent.
There can be, but
there's
I still think our opinion is valid that there is
absolutely.
randomness in the game that can
unmitigatable randomness
that can be seen as a negative, right? And can be frustrating.
It doesn't overall detract from my experience and enjoyment of this game, but it can create moments that are frustrating
and don't feel good.
That don't feel good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. But I mean, that's a minor thing in my opinion. I mean, I like in my example, I was able to get a fruit in the end.
Right.
And it was, I was able to distill the spirit and it was fun and I had a good time. So it's a very minor negative in my opinion, but it's something to kind of, I think maybe be aware of.
But I think
right?
it feeds into kind of what I was saying, because you were able to do that because it was the end of the game and you had already created an engine. You already had a ton of money and you could cycle through to eventually find a fruit. But those premium ingredients are expensive, and early on, like when I had the problem and couldn't get the stuff, everything I needed, I didn't have the money to be able to do that. So timing, I think, is important here in how that happens.
Yeah.
If that bad randomness kind of happens early on, it can be hard to recover from.
Yeah. Another thing that is kind of gut-wrenching as well is when you're taking the top and bottom card off and you take off a berry that's worth 4 victory points.
Yes. Yeah.
I'm like, what?
Yeah.
No, that's like, I'm losing all these victory points. Like
it feels better.
That's a randomness as well. That's like, oh gosh.
It feels better when it happens mid-game versus the last round.
one.
Yeah,
When
because you can lose out.
You're not going to score those.
Yeah, you can lose out on a lot of points that way.
Fortunately, in that last game that we played, I think at that same time, I pulled out one that was missing almost the exact same amount of points as you. So it's like, oh, I feel better about it. You suffer as much as I do. We're great.
Yeah. Well, but when it comes down to a game that's within a few points, that can be a big deal.
Absolutely.
Right.
Sure.
And that's another little level of randomness in there to be aware of. But.
Anything else you guys don't like?
No, I mean, for the most part, it's great.
Yeah.
I mean, very few things that I don't like about this game for sure.
Same. So I think that kind of wraps up our overall experience with this game. Are we ready to move into our final thoughts with this game?
Sure.
Let's do it. Who's going first? Tyson?
I'll go first.
Do it.
Yeah, I'll go first. So everything that we said about this game, I think there's some amazing things in this game. I love, as I said earlier, that the passion with which this game was created is very much apparent in the execution of the game. It's very clear to see that this is somebody who appreciates and loves the theme and puts it through in a way that even though I don't appreciate and love the theme, I can respect and admire that love for this theme in a way that makes me appreciate it to some extent. Beyond that, I think mechanically I really enjoy what's going on, and it's relatively straightforward and simple in a way that I feel like most people can play this game. It's not overly complex, and you can introduce this to a lot of different players. I love, as we've talked about, the solo experience and what it has to offer, and I'm floored. Like I was blown away by how simple and elegant that solo design was, and I want to see more solo designs of big box games utilizing that same type of footprint in a solo design, because I think it works really well. So I love that about it. But ultimately, I love the tension that's in the multiplayer experience, and aside from a little bit of that randomness that can make have a couple of feel bad moments, I think this game is really well. So overall, on a scale of 1 to 5, 5 being best, 1 being the worst, and 0 if we hate it, I would put this game at a 4. I really enjoy this game. I will play this game anytime it comes out. I don't know that it quite reaches like my top games of all, but I like this game a lot and would always be happy to play this game.
Yeah, I have similar feelings, I think. This game's just fun to play, right? The theme is fun. I've learned a lot about distilling spirits, which is fantastic. I love the bottles and the variety in the bottles. I love that you're adding different flavors when you're aging, and revealing the flavors is just hilarious, and that's just a fun moment. All the distillery upgrades. I just think this game does a lot of things really well, and it's just, like I said, a fun game to play. Few minor nitpicks, with the randomness like we've mentioned. Not a big deal. It doesn't really detract from my enjoyment of the game. It doesn't quite get to the top 5, like a 5 level for me, but it's a 4, and it's a game that I will always be willing to play. It's a fantastic game, and looking forward to exploring it some more. So it's a 4. It's a 4 for me.
So I echo all the things that you guys said about this game, and the whole discussion that we've had about it. It's a fantastic game. I've had a blast playing every single time. The distill mechanic I love. I think it's just really unique and really interesting, and it's fun. I love adding in the flavors. I love the decision of, do I age? Do I do a spirit that I have to age and delay my rewards, or make something that I can sell right now? Lots of interesting decisions. We played this game the very first time at 5 players, and that was like, whoa. It was overwhelming, right? I mean, it was a long game, and it took a while as a learning game, but even that game was fun. And I just think this game flows so well. It's exciting to see what other drinks people are creating. It's exciting to see people fighting over which ingredients to buy, or which items, or which upgrades. I think the rewards that you get when you make a spirit and you take those labels, and there's a number of different rewards across the top of your distillery board that you get to cover up and do one time during the course of the game. Those are really fun too, and feel powerful. I love the build up to those 5, the 5th, 6th, and 7th round, where you eventually have tons of money and you can just go hog wild and buy tons of ingredients or tons of cool bottles or whatever you need. Just such a fun experience for me. It's a 5 for me. And maybe I give out 5s a little too much, but
you're 5 happy.
If we did a 1 to 10 scale, this would be a 9 for me. And for me, it goes up to a 5 rather than go down to a 4. I really enjoy this game. I would like to get the expansion. I'm really excited for Paverson's Games next game, Luthier. It's got Vincent Dutrait doing the art. I don't know if you'd seen that, Tyson.
Vincent Dutrait.
So I'm excited for that, to see what comes next from them, because this is their first published game, and to see where they go from here, it's exciting, because if the quality, the production is there, the love for the theme is there, and it's an enjoyable game. I mean, I see them doing a lot of good things in the future.
They knocked this one out of the park for a first game.
It was fun to see them at Gen Con and see all the people around their booth.
Yeah, right? And the line went to the back of the hall and around the corner a little bit.
Yeah, they did a really good job on this one.
I was going to try and talk to him, but
hey, sell your game.
Yeah,
I don't want to distract you.
Their booth was swamped, so that was really cool to see. It's well deserved, because this is a fantastic game.
Absolutely. Totally.
Tyler's like Oprah. You get a 5. You get a 5. You get a
5. Except for that Lord of the Rings game.
Oh yeah, you get a 2.
At least it wasn't a 1.
Yeah.
All right. Should we talk about? Do we have anything we're excited about?
I'm excited about something.
Okay.
Ahsoka. Premieres tonight.
Wait a minute, you're excited about something Star Wars related?
Okay, so I love.
Do we want to? Do we want to start talking?
I'm nervous.
Okay.
I love the Clone Wars. I love Rebels. I love the Ahsoka character. So, Disney, this is your last freaking chance with me.
Haven't you said that before?
I have multiple times, but this is the one I was really holding out for. So, I hope it's good. Should be interesting. I don't know. We're going to find out real quick what if this is Secret Invasion level or
which I haven't finished. I
haven't even started
that. I can't comment on Secret Invasion. I've watched like 2 episodes of
or that. Some of the other stuff that they've put out in the last couple of years or what. So, yeah, I'm excited.
You have to let me know how it is, because I don't think I'm going to watch it, at least initially.
Here's my concern, though, is that you have such opinions, Tyler, about Star Wars that and they've disappointed you so many times in recent years that putting your expectations so high for Ahsoka, you have nowhere to go but down, and that's my concern for you. I don't have anywhere near the same expectations for it. In fact, I'm keeping my expectations low so that I can hopefully be pleasantly surprised. That's kind of my goal with that.
I had the same expectations going into Guardians 3, and I loved that movie. I thought it was amazing. I don't even know which Guardians movie I like the most at this point. After watching the third one again, once it was released at home on Disney Plus. So
yeah,
it is possible to meet those expectations, however unlikely. I mean, let's be for real. The Mandalorian season 3 was kind of a turd.
It was, I mean, compared to seasons 1 and 2 especially, but like
Boba Fett was a joke.
Boba Fett was a joke.
Obi-Wan was a freaking joke.
Obi-Wan had its moments, but it wasn't great.
But it was, yeah.
Andor was awesome.
Andor was phenomenal.
I loved Andor.
Yeah. Which you still haven't watched, right?
I watched the first episode.
Why aren't you watching the best one that's come out in the past 2 years?
It's really boring, I thought.
The first episode,
it takes a few to get into, but
it was a slow build up, but it delivered.
And then for Marvel,
I know what happens to this character. I think that's part of it too, right?
Not yet, you don't. But yes.
Well, I mean, I know in the end I do, but I don't know what happens to Ahsoka.
She also dies because
why
she's
does that
mortal.
matter? It can still be a good story.
No, I'm not saying that it can't be a good story because I know the ending. I'm just saying I'm less interested.
The tension is less there for you because
it's the
same
with any prequel show.
Situation that they get in, the threat of death can't hold is kind of what you're saying.
Right. Yeah.
Because they don't die at that point.
Do you watch Moon Knight? Moon Knight was awesome.
Moon Knight was fantastic.
Loved Moon Knight.
That was probably the last best thing that they did prior to Guardians 3.
So if we're talking about what we're excited about and we're talking about shows and movies, I am a little bit excited about
Rings
Loki.
Of Power too. Okay.
No, Loki. Wheel of Time? No. I'm excited about Loki season 2, which is coming out shortly within October time.
I'm excited
right?
for that.
Yeah, I liked
this first
Loki
season
1 a lot,
and I love Owen Wilson. So
I didn't either, but I don't really like Owen Wilson.
No, I do love him.
I like him. I think
yeah, he's one of my favorite actors.
Well, then I'm different because I he's fine. I don't dislike him, but most of the time I'm like,
I think he does a good job.
Wow.
For the most part now, recently though, I'm, Marvel, Disney, or Star Wars. I'm like, whatever. Yeah. Star Trek though. They're doing some good stuff with Star Trek.
I haven't.
Strange New Worlds is amazing. I love Strange New Worlds.
Should we talk about some board games we're excited about?
We could.
See,
you started this with,
you did.
And I knew we would get down a rabbit hole on all the movie stuff.
A lot of my board game stuff that I'm excited about, we talked about in our Gen Con episode.
I'm excited to play Marco Polo on BGA. I'm in my first game ever with Tyson and a couple guys from our Discord server, and I'm excited. I've wanted to play that for a long time. I've almost bought it without playing it, and I feel already a couple turns in, I'm like, this game's kind of sweet.
I feel the same way about it, and I feel like for a BGA game, like some bigger box BGA games are really difficult to understand the nuances with. I haven't felt that way at this point with Marco Polo, and I think it's going well, and I see strategies, and I see opportunities.
And it's Luciani and Tassini. Like that design pedigree is, they've got some amazing games together and individually. So
I'm excited about some old games I'm playing on BGA. Like we got a game of Clans going right now.
It's good.
Holy cow, I love that. It's awesome. You know, and it just reminds me how good that game is, how good the design is. I love the area control.
Except for the randomness in it.
Randomness?
Yeah, when you've complete a column. No. I put all my cheeses out. I got the three contracts to look at, and they all sucked. That randomness sucks.
Yeah,
there's no mitigating that.
There is some randomness there. This is your number one game of all time.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
You're throwing down some criticism here.
Well, there's randomness everywhere. I think that can be leave a little bad taste in your mouth when it doesn't go your way.
That's true.
Yeah, but it's a really good game.
Fantastic game.
Yeah, I like that I've blocked off the whole bottom left corner.
You have, but you have some, cows and sheep there that you can. There'll be an opening there eventually. If I really want to get down to that, but I don't think I want to get down.
The reward down there isn't.
Yeah, I gave up on that reward long ago.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Lots of games should be shipping soon. Voidfall
we talked about. I'm super excited about. I was going to bring that up again, but I mean that looks amazing. Tyson's having some FOMO there.
I am having FOMO, and that's
this is why you need to back Ascendancy, so you don't have FOMO for that.
I agree with that.
The only reason I didn't back Voidfall was because you both went all in on it and then told me, hey, You might as well get Arcs, which I'm still waiting on Arcs, which is still another year probably out on Arcs because it's a leader game, which they don't fully have the game design when they put it on Kickstarter. And
is that another lifestyle game?
No, I don't think so. Not in the same way as like Root or...
I remember when you backed that. I looked at it as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I am excited about it. The trick taking in 4X form, like I am excited about it. So, but
nice.
I'm more excited about Voidfall because it's impending nature right now.
Did you have some FOMO when you saw those Ankh pictures?
No, because I've gotten a lot of play out of Ankh, and I wouldn't.
Oh, you've been saying lately how much you wanted to play.
Like
Ankh,
I do want to play Ankh again. I watched that, and I saw the pictures, and I was like, oh yeah, I need
pictures on Discord that you posted.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I saw those pictures, and I'm like, oh man, I'm glad I got rid of that. Free up few cubes in my calyx
because I'm one. I think.
Yeah,
I combined and
that took up so much space that I'm like, okay, I'm glad I don't have
when
that.
When did you get it down to one? Because on Saturday, you had 2 cubes.
Did you melt some components? Like, what are you doing?
I combined some boxes and they all fit very snugly, but it's 1 cube.
No, it's in 2 cubes.
It's like Tekkenu, and there's other.
I'm walking over there.
Egyptian themed games over there. Ra's over there. And
okay, report on what you see over there, Tyson. Can you try?
Technology.
Yeah, light switches. Man, they're tough.
Toggle on, off. Yeah, but it could be consolidated into one.
That's not what you said.
You know what?
You have been proven wrong, Tyler.
You know what is more of a cube hog than those? All the freaking Nemesis expansions that I
believe
have.
it, but you have 2 cubes worth of Ankh there.
When Cthulhu Death May Die fulfills.
Oh my gosh.
Wow. That's going to be like
4 seasons.
Yeah. 3 cuber there.
Yeah.
Well, and then where are you going to put the statue? Yeah. He's going to be prominently displayed.
He's going to be displayed out of Caden's range. That's for sure.
Oh, gosh.
Because if he falls on Caden, he might crush Caden.
Yeah.
His wings are going to lacerate him.
Does it come with the IKEA secure mounts?
Yeah. Probably should, actually. Yeah.
Well, I think we've rambled on long enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, we got real rambly in this last part. And at the start of the episode, too.
Pretty much the whole episode. Yeah. Are we at 3 hours yet?
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Longest Turn Board Gaming Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to check out our full-length episodes. We discuss games that we've been playing, do deep dives and feature reviews, share top 5 lists on a variety of board game topics, and discuss all things board game related. For even more Longest Turn, check out our Discord server, Board Game Geek blog and guild, Instagram, and Twitter. All links and information are included in the show notes. Thanks for listening.
Welcome. Nope.
Welcome. A little nasally.
Welcome to the Longest Turn Board Gaming Contest. This is Tyson.
I was waiting for it because I knew you were
Welcome to the Board Gaming Podcast.
It's a contest.
I was wondering why your voice is so weird. I'm like, this is the real
That's
take?
not the Tyler voice.
No.
That's the make fun of Tyson voice.
Yeah.
So I haven't played Clank Legacy yet. It's on my shelf of shame. Excuse me.
Getting choked up about that.
Yeah.
Disappears from in between New York and Europe somewhere. I can't recall where exactly it was porting, but it making port.
What was the arm movement?
It's all over the map. I couldn't find the spot on
I
the
love
globe.
the visual of that. I wish we had video. Yeah, that was good. That was good. That's a quick rundown of how to play. Let's get back to the table to see what blah, blah, blah.